Yeah, I think one of the things, and your military service, and by the way, thank you for your service, but your military service was an excellent foundation in discipline. I mean, there's probably no better example of discipline, and it wasn't a one and done thing. You didn't show up for boot camp and they said, okay, you're now a soldier, and you had that discipline. It was driven over multiple days, weeks, excursions. Exercises, etc. And similarly, anything in management and leadership is the same thing. And if you fall into good habits, that's going to be great and it's going to compound and give you the results. If you fall into bad habits, it's going to have the opposite effect. And there's never been a time, and this is just getting worse, where there have been more distractions.
Welcome to the Sharpen the Spear podcast, where we help home service pros cut through the noise, sharpen their business tools, and reclaim the profit, freedom, and impact they've been missing. I'm your host, Richard Walsh, Profit Freedom Coach, and I'm here to help you stop grinding and start growing. Let's sharpen the spear. And we are back on STS Sharpen the Spear podcast with another incredible guest. I've got Brad Henderson with us. And today, well, see, I'm going to tease you. I'm not going to say anything because no one knows Brad better than Brad. So Brad, a little backstory, bring us up to speed, and we'll get into the real conversation.
Thank you very much, Richard, and thank you for having me on your show. Short story, after 45 years in a whole variety of leadership roles in corporations as small as 50 people, as large as 6,000 people, 7 different industries, I decided I wanted to be a leadership coach. So about 9 months ago, started that up, wrote a book. It's called The Consistency Effect. It came out last week. Proud to say that it is Amazon bestseller. So I'm just doing my thing as a leadership coach, trying to help the next generation avoid some of the mistakes I made in my career.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, congrats on the bestseller. I'm also a bestseller too of my book. So you're in good company. I'm in good company. That's fantastic. So leadership's a big thing, Brad. It's a very, I'm going to call it a popular thing. Okay. Which may sound odd, but it seems a lot of people, obviously I do it as well, right? I do business and I do leadership. That's all part of it. But but you have decades of experience, right? Leading others. Which is really great. And I'm really glad you're bringing it to the coaching arena, right? Because people need it. So what I've noticed too, and you said helping the next generation, and the reality is we've got 5 generations working right now. Okay. It's scary. Okay. Because they all respond differently to different things. So it is a major leadership challenge right now. Wouldn't you agree?
Totally. And when you and I, Richard, came up through the ranks, there was a lot more support than there is now. I mean, pushing people into remote work, more and more we're finding generations not wanting to take on leadership roles, finding it too challenging. We've taken, great individual contributors and we said, we love you. We now want you to lead, but we're not going to give you any coaching or support. And so I think that the role of the executive leader, the leadership coach, has taken on way more importance than it had in the past. And it's a noble endeavor. I really believe that people can be taught, can be shared. They can share with them some great thoughts and ideas and capabilities on how they can be great leaders and how they can empower other leaders. I think if you can teach somebody not only to be a great leader, but to teach other people to be a great leader and so on down the line, that's the way we're going to make, true change in the whole leadership arena.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the great leaders make more leaders. That's what the greats do. The below average leaders just care about themselves and being important and being leading. And it's not the way to grow. Okay. It's just, and that puts a pretty low ceiling on your own position. Right. So I love that you understand that, because we have to see that. We have to utilize our knowledge, our experience. I take stuff from the Marine Corps. I've been out for 35, 40 years, but I still can use that in my leadership training as I train, other business leaders, people on the front lines in manufacturing and stuff like that. Do a lot of that, and I love it because honestly, these young people. So we got a lot of. So here's the thing: we talked about the 5 generations, but that upper is all they're all aging out. We have a lot of manufacturing in my area, and there was an article, and they said that in the next 5 to 10 years, they're losing 100 years of experience. These guys are all aging out. Now you got these young guys, the ones that are there. I mean, and I'm just being frank, they couldn't lead you to lunch. Okay. Like they just don't have any skills because, and I'll tell you, one of the reasons is too much screen time. Everyone is in the screen. They don't interact with people. They don't understand. There's no, what do they say? Verbal communication is like 7% verbally. People get stuff verbally. The rest is body language and everything else, right? They don't have any of that. This is why they can't lead, well, one of the many reasons, right? So I think what we have a massive challenge, right? I think that's kind of what you're saying. Like, that's why, as I said, the field is growing from a leadership standpoint, but it's needed because there's 32 million small businesses in this country alone, right? With people that need to lead other people and they're struggling.
And you brought up an interesting point, which is about manufacturing. And if you listen to a lot of the people that are the experts in artificial intelligence, they're going to tell you that the jobs that people thought were the safe jobs, IT, coding, finance, consulting, that all of those jobs are going to go away. And what is going to become the new best jobs are going to be people making things. And if you're not a great leader, if you don't know how to lead people in any discipline, this is going to be a huge challenge.
Yeah, it really is. They call them the durable trades, right? Or trades and service, manufacturing. These guys are on the floor building things, moving products, stuff like that is really incredible. I was just on with another guest and talking about what I do a lot with the construction, service, and trades industry. And my whole goal to bring this in with the AI is to prepare them for scale, right? So here's the struggle. First, we're already short skilled workers, okay, because these kids aren't doing it, right? No one thinks it's a path to wealth, but it is because they're going to be the new white collar. They're going to be the new wealthy. But until we prepare them to scale, they won't be able to, right? So what do they need? Leaders. They need guys who can go out. You're limited as an individual, right? So we need to build these teams so they can go and take market share. That's how I kind of see it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that, people, my book is called The Consistency Effect. And the reason why I bring that up is because, everyone thinks that you need a grand slam or a home run or an innovation to be a great leader. And what I'm trying to advocate is that the good old fashioned singles and doubles players in baseball, scored way more runs, won more games, won more World Series than all of the Grand Slam hitters put together. And the metaphor is perfect for business because really it's consistency, showing up every day, being that consistent person if you're an individual contributor, or being that consistent leader if you're someone who loves to lead people.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I tell my kids this. I have 6 kids, and as I raise them, that consistency is what it's about. And here's the thing, like, as you probably demonstrate over your 40 plus years doing this stuff, just like me, like I'm at the gym every day, right? In the morning, I have a morning routine I do every day. My kids can get up at 4:30 in the morning and I'm there, sipping my coffee or doing my reading, everything else. They see a consistency. Like they know that. They know, oh, that's where I'm going to be. And that's where the gains come from, right? And it's a discipline that a lot of people don't have, right? But it is what works is long term. Even if you talk about finances and compounding and things like that, it's incremental changes. I do it with businesses. Incremental changes in small areas consistently create massive profit, right? Yeah. Just with what they already have. So we really teach this concept. So I love it that your book is about this. Consistency. And let's talk about some of the ways that you're applying in your book consistency. Like, where do you see this? You give like specific examples. I have not had the opportunity to read the book since it just came out a week ago, but like, let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think one of the things, and your military service, and by the way, thank you for your service, but your military service was an excellent foundation in discipline. I mean, there's probably no better example of discipline. And it wasn't a one and done thing. You didn't show up for boot camp and they said, okay, you're now a soldier, and you had that discipline. It was driven over multiple days, weeks, excursions, exercises, etc. And similarly, anything in management and leadership is the same thing. And if you fall into good habits, that's going to be great and it's going to compound and give you the results. If you fall into bad habits, it's going to have the opposite effect. And there's never been a time, and this is just getting worse, where there have been more distractions. I mean, your watch goes off, your phone goes off, there beeps on your computer. Every device seems to be competing for your attention. And so there are all these things that knock you off a consistency routine. And unless you create not only the rigor and the discipline and the habits, but also the systems to support you in being consistent, you'll find that it is very difficult to do. It's always amazing to me, Richard, that consistency is one of those things. When you talk to leaders, they say, "Oh, absolutely, that's so important and so essential in today's business." But then when you watch what they do on a daily basis, it isn't consistent. And what's the message that they're sending to the people down the line? The message is it's okay to be distracted. It's okay to fall off, whatever the flavor of the week is. It's okay to do whatever you're doing because I talk about consistency, but I don't walk that walk.
So spot on. I mean, I talked that about with kids too, when you raise them. I said, you can tell them all the right things. If you don't walk the walk, because remember, with children, more is caught than taught. All right. They're watching everything you do. That's the default. Doesn't matter what you say. It could be spot on. Yes. Just like you describe these leaders, I see it all the time. Okay. And this phone thingy, these people think it's a right. It's a right to be able to look at that while they're working. It's a right that they can take phone calls all day because, it could be something important. It's like, and I know again, the 5 generations, it's like, it's like you're taking their arm off if you remove the phone. It's like you
Yeah.
just amputated an arm, and we nicknamed them one-arm workers. Whenever I see my kids, and I'm like, dude, we don't do one-arm working around here. Put that thing away. Both hands on the shovel. Let's go. So it's
Well, that's an excellent point, Richard, and it brings up another concept, which is boundaries. We talk about boundaries all the time in leadership, and about creating the boundaries as a leader. You want to create some boundaries with your team, and you want your team to have boundaries around work and life and integration between those two things. But if you're checking your phone at 24 hours a day, if your boss is pinging you and you can't have those boundaries, it's contributing to a mental health challenge that we've never seen before. Because again, with all these distracting devices, with all these different ways to communicate, the boundaries have all but disappeared.
good point, Brad. Really good. I'm like, I get the boundary part at first when you start saying that, but all the boundaries disappearing and all the different ways of communication is really important because it's a ding, it's a this tone, it's a phone ring, it's a video, it's whatever messenger. It is all these different ways to be distracted. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard. I mean, I see with my kids, we didn't give them phones till they were teenagers, and if I had to do it again, I'd wait even longer. Okay, I won't do that either. Like, you get nothing. Here's a flip phone. That's all you get. So we can call you. But it's just you see it, and it's so hard. Even when I'm with other people, like you said the watch, because now the watch will do your iPhone thingy, and they'll get the wrist turns. They're not checking the time. They just got a text, and they're reading it. But like we're having a conversation. It's like if I
Yeah.
kept, oh, hold on, Brad, I got a call. I'll be right back to you during this podcast. I mean, it's that kind of stupidity, right? But that's what people do. It's kind of, I know it's easier for some of us who've been around longer because we were there when it wasn't there. and we understand what deliberate, intentional conversation is. Like, I don't think a lot of these people understand that anymore. They don't get it. Distraction to a conversation is an accepted reality now. And it's,
I agree. And you talked earlier about the five generations. And as much as you and I might like to think that the older generation gets it and models great behaviors, we don't.
no,
For the most part, we are all very, very distracted. And the message that we're sending to our kids, to our employees, is that it's okay to be distracted. It's okay to pick this up during a call and not pay attention to what's going on, or to turn your camera off on a Zoom call because you're going to be doing 10 other things.
yeah,
We all know inherently that focus is an important part of getting things done, not only in a timely fashion, but also done properly. But yet we don't have the boundaries, and we don't have the systems, and we don't have the discipline to actually cause that to happen.
yeah, I've got a client, and she's got a medical uh, office and stuff, a couple of them. And what she did with, and there's primarily women who work there, she finally came up with, like, she has a basket and everyone has to put their phone in the basket when they come to work. They get it, they can turn it back on at lunchtime. Okay, they can do that, and it goes back in the basket. And if they do this, there's rewards. She created a reward structure going this trip, and they're going to do all this stuff, right? So, the first day, nightmare, right? Everyone's probably going to die. They all feel like they're, but by day 3, they're like, this is really good. I'm getting so much more done. I'm like, the clarity, and it's like, she's like, she didn't know what to expect. I said,
Yeah.
well, just experiment. And they actually loved it. So you talk about boundaries. If you can put the boundaries in, like something like that, it's like, listen, no one's going to die because you don't have your phone. Okay. So
It's,
it's all good.
it's not just boundaries, that's culture building. That's
Yes.
culture building, because the people, how, it came from a different culture to a new culture.
Mm.
And now that culture is so important within that organization. Now, envision somebody coming into that organization, you or I coming into that organization, once it's up and running, and everybody puts their phone in the basket. So now, the expectation is that we're going to do that as well. And that's going to build and compound. If that's a positive cultural effect, that's going to have a positive effect on the organization. And it's a
Yeah.
perfect example of how you systematize boundaries, how you take away some of the variability that is creeping into the system from all different directions.
Yeah. That's a great point, Brad, because as owners of a business, okay, we're in charge of the culture. No one else is in charge of the culture. Okay, we create it. We create the vision for the company. We create the operating systems, right? Like you're saying. I think that's a really good point. That, again, it's an assumption when everyone else is doing it, it's not a big deal. But if you're the only one who puts his phone in the basket and everyone else is watching their phone, you don't have a culture. Okay, you're an oddball now.
Or if the owner doesn't put their phone in the basket, or they take it out of the basket because they say, well, that doesn't apply to me, right? It's sending all the wrong messages.
That's right. My kids will, I have a smartphone. I use it for business, but I don't really use it much. And I remember my kids when they were a little bit younger, they're like, well, Daddy, you don't have any games on your phone. I go, because Daddy don't play games. I don't play. This is a tool, not a toy. Okay.
Yeah.
That's your two options. It can be a tool or a toy. I choose tool. Okay.
Yeah.
This benefits me in those ways. But if I leave, Brad, if I leave home without it and I get home, I hear it from my wife. You
Yeah.
left without your phone. And went, yeah, I spent most of my life doing that. So it's like, I'm pretty good. But, they just, again, it's a different expectation, right? It's kind of funny. I get it, and everything else, but I'm just kind of like, yeah, it's kind of liberating. Sometimes you just want to put it on the counter and go and sneak out of the house. I'm like, I'm leaving, and I'm leaving this here. Oops, I forgot it. You know what I mean? So we can have a little bit of fun with it, but the whole concept of, from a leadership standpoint, and we talk about these boundaries, because I often too want to build lanes out, right, for how people do things, what they do, how they do it, all the training for it and everything else. But that has to be built into the culture as well, right? So I don't know if you get into this in your book, but it's that you can't silo this stuff, right? You can't go, oh, we're just going to get consistent on this. Okay. It has to be well, company wide or culturally, right? Is
Yeah.
they kind of, it's like that, right? People think you can do one spot in the company, then I have this little corner that does really well, but I can't make everybody do it. So what have you seen with that as far as making that full conversion?
And it's really important, we'll get back to the fact that the employees watch every move that you make. So for example, if you're the owner, the CEO, or even just a senior executive in any company, and you send out an email at 11 o'clock at night. Now you might do that because it was a thought you had, it was another email that came in, and I'm just sending it to you, Richard. And my expectation is that you're going to get to it whenever. But if I don't set that expectation, either globally or when I send that email, you might actually receive it and go, oh my goodness, he is wanting me to respond right now. I need to respond right now. And this might take you 5 minutes. It might take you 5 hours to respond to that email, depending on what the nature of the business is. And this is where the culture can get lost and go on autopilot in a whole bunch of unintended ways. And this is what is actually helping to contribute to burnout and why so many people, the quiet quitting or whatever you want to call it, are disengaging from organizations because how we're doing things might be simple and efficient and unintentional, but the intentions are real just the same.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you have to set standards, right? And people don't like standards today. They don't like being held to standards, but some are hard, some are easier than others, but there has to be some kind of standard, like I always thought, running businesses, whatever, last 35 years, that I'm the only one who doesn't get to turn the business off. It's always on my mind. I'm always thinking about it, which isn't good either. But like I always, when my employees left at the end of the day, that's it. I won't see them till 7 a.m. the next day. I won't talk to them. I won't do any of that. Right. So, and we got to work pre-email and all that kind of stuff too. But at the same time, though, it's still an expectation. Like I don't want to burden them, and this is my own thought process. I'm like, well, when they're on the payroll, they're working. When they're off
Yeah.
the payroll, I don't burden them. Right. That's just, it seemed common sense to me. But today you're right. And it could be, again, it could be totally just, yeah, I had a thought and I shot it out there and people see it in the morning when they get in the office, but they don't. They get notifications on their phones and they
Yeah.
look at, then they see that and in their own mind, they create that. Right. So I totally get that. And that again is a cultural set point that has to be began at the top. Right. And I don't even know if it means like you don't have to answer anything after hours, or the owner says, I will not send emails outside business hours. Like I don't even know where that would go with that kind of stuff. But it seems like, again, always, I do believe, like you, I think with everything begins at the top. Everything. You want to find the problem because I coach a lot of businesses, and the reality is, us as owners are usually the biggest problem. Okay, we're the major stumbling block. Yes, there's problems on the floor and it's out here and over there, but really we're the ones who have to take the accountability for that being the way it is.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's because of our example.
And help the next generation as well, or any one of the five generations,
Right.
because if we're sending it out and if we send it out at 11 and the guy or girl gets it and she sends it out at 11:15 and so on down the line gets it at 11:35 and they feel like they've got to respond and so on down the line, it contributes to that culture. And it goes back to what we talked about earlier and what you're passionate about, which is coaching, which is in a lot of cases the leaders today, and I say more young leaders, don't really understand the consequences of their actions. For the most part, they were excellent individual contributors. And the reason why they got into leadership is because somebody said, you're a great doer, and I now want you to manage people. And it was like, okay, there you go. You go figure it out because that's what I did. And they're going to make all of the same mistakes that we made. And I think my wish for the next generation or subsequent generations is let's make new mistakes. Let's not make the old ones because I've already experienced those ones, and some of them are in the book. And you can figure those out. Let's make some new ones.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Brad, because you're absolutely right. Hey, you're really good at what you do. Let's put you into management. Man, I don't wish that on anybody. Okay. That management is a unique position. Okay. It's not, it, it's the middle. It's like in the middle. It's the skill set of dealing with people.
Yeah.
It's a seriously challenging position to be in. I'll tell you, I'm not a manager. Okay, I can tell you that. Okay. I know my limits, right? Now I help people train and become that, right? I bring in the right people to help them and stuff because it's a very, very unique position that really can grind the business to a halt. Okay, because lack of productivity, accountability, right? Not hitting your numbers, not reaching any metrics because of what it is, high turnover, right? You can equate a lot to that section. It's not only that, but a lot of that is that because that's your frontline people. That's their first point of contact, right? So that's what they know. They don't know above that. They don't know anyone in the C-suite. Okay, they never will. Okay, they know this guy who's standing over them, yelling at them. And I've seen in all kinds of different businesses because they're not doing what they should be doing. That thing that they should be doing, they were never taught how to do properly, but they're getting yelled at for not knowing how to do it. I see it all the time. I'm like, well,
Totally.
did you teach them? I mean, there's just this leadership failure that cascades from up top all the way down to the very bottom.
And where it gets even more challenging is when you have somebody who's extremely good at what they do, because it'll be difficult for them to delegate it to somebody who's not as good as they are.
Right.
And unless they get the whole concept of how they can coach and mentor somebody to become as good as them, or goodness forgive, that they become better at it than they are, which is my desire, is that people become better managers, better leaders than I am,
Yep.
because that is the way that to push it forward. But what ends up happening, as you know, and you probably experienced many, many times, is that somebody goes, step out of the way, ma'am or son, and let me show you how it's done. And then they walk away and they've done what it needed to be done. They have now usurped that person's either desire or passion to want to do something. And they stand back and go, well, I guess he's just going to do it, or she's just going to do it every time I screw up. And I'm never going to learn. So I'll just, sit by and watch this all happen. And meanwhile, the leader becomes overwhelmed because they're now trying to do everybody's job, not just their own.
Right. I think this is what I'm starting to assume as part of my language. So I'm starting to interchange leadership and coach. Okay, because just like what you're saying, you need to coach these people. A coach isn't running the plays. He's not on the field running the plays and throwing the ball, right? He's coaching them how to do it. Right. Here's the play. Here's how we're going to execute it. Now let's go. And now I'll correct you and do that. That's what the real leadership is. You're really in a coach role. And if you're not doing that with those you're in charge of, that's also how you create new leaders, is coaching them so they can do it. Because if they learn how they were coached, they can then coach. Right.
Oh,
I was a boxer. Right. So I had a coach. He taught me how to box. Okay. I couldn't box a lunch. And then next thing you know, a few years later with a good coach, I'm a champion. Okay. And that's great. But then I started coaching because I learned how to coach. Right. I might add a couple little things my own, but if I didn't have that example, how am I going to do it? I know how to, get in the ring and do it, but I don't know how to coach someone to do it. Right. So I think leadership and coach have to be kind of intermingled. You have to understand that's a big part of what you're doing as a leader.
absolutely. And, just adding to that is that, once I've had a conversation with somebody, because in my role as a leader, I feel like I've been a coach for forever,
Mm-hmm.
because I have always seen those two as being highly complementary. But one of the things I do at the end of the session is that somebody's come away from something and said, "Hey, that was great, and I really get that." And they said, "Well, now how are you going to take that to all of your direct reports? Tell me about your process to take that learning to all of your direct reports, because it's great that you're now enlightened,
Right.
but now how are you going to share that with subsequent groups, and then how are you going to teach someone to teach someone else? How is that
Right.
going to cascade down?
See, and what you just described there is company culture. If they can be trained that way, that has to be a training method. Okay, understanding that, and that's exactly how it should look. Like go back to the Marine Corps. In Vietnam, for example, we had Lance Corporals. You're talking E3s, pretty low. You got private PFC and Lance Corporal running whole platoons because the staff sergeant's taken out, the corporal's taken out. You're just stepping up in the role because you've been taught.
Yeah.
You've been taught how to lead. You know how to get in there, and you can continue with the mission, right? So again, those are some of the things I bring to it as well. Like we need to understand that, right? It's not a matter of yes, I outrank you. I get it. When all's good, that's cool. But when I'm out, who steps into that role effortlessly? That's the
Totally.
key, right? It can't come to a grinding halt.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's a perfect example of consistency, because if an army is dependent on the general and cannot move without it, it is not going to be successful. It doesn't matter how great that general is. So that consistency, that ability to be that amorphous leadership body that can survive devastating losses and still move with the thinking and the culture that you want that organization to move. That's the way that it makes it.
Yeah, we call it, now the newer term is decentralized command,
Sure.
right? And it works, right? It's empowering people, coaching them, and giving them authority. That's another thing I think in leadership and coaching on these floors and these businesses, that they're not designating authority. It's one thing to say go do it or tell other people to do it, but you actually need a designated authority to do certain things. Like I am the authority at this situation. So like you'll come to me, I'll do this, and it doesn't mean they're big things, but those people who actually need to know they have that authority, right? Because sometimes like, well, am I allowed to do this? Can I actually go help that person over there? Because they look like they're really struggling, but maybe I'm not allowed to do that. Maybe that's someone else's job, and I can't be going stepping on their toes because I think I know everything, right? So there's also this authority designation I think is important as well, even on a very, very small micro level.
Yep. And adding to that is also the ability to follow up with them, because delegation isn't abrogation. You don't just
Mhm.
say, okay, Richard, here you go. You've got the authority, go ahead and do it. And then hope that it gets done the right way. But there's a balance between micromanaging somebody and saying, okay, well, tell me exactly how you're going to do that, versus, so Richard, tell me, how do you think this should be done? Or how are you going to approach it? I'm giving you the opportunity to open up and tell me how you're going to do it. And if I like it, I'm going to reinforce it. If I don't, I'm going to question it. And if you come up with something that's different than what it might have been in my mind, and I think it's better, oh my gosh, there you go. That's exactly how you get an organization that is, the greater than the sum of all of its parts.
Yeah, I love it. That's so true. It's really, I like the follow up. Follow up is, we use it in sales. Follow up is king. That's how you close deals. And it's the fourth call and later. Okay, not the first three. So it's an ongoing process. But I think like what you're saying is it has to be that do this, leave, never talk to them until the next day. There has to be we call it, you got to inspect what you expect.
Exactly.
Okay, so you just come take a look at to get it done. That's great. I had my guys, I would teach them how to do something, and I learned this early on. They were really good at doing exactly what you show them. So if you show it to them wrong, they will do it wrong every single time. They were masters of consistency. All right. So it was incumbent on me to do it right. So I'm going to demonstrate 4 foot. We're going to do this. Here's how you do it. Next thing. Okay, go ahead. You do it. I'll watch and help you a little bit. Okay, we got it. I'm going to watch through the whole thing. Good to go. I'm out. Right. So we kind of take it through that whole process and then make sure they've got it. Now they're able to be held accountable, right, for doing it correctly because I've seen them do it. They've performed it, they've done it, they've done without me helping. Really important. And I think a big struggle out there is people don't have the proper training, like you mentioned earlier, with just giving the doer the promotion. They don't train them properly. They have what they do, they may even have how they do it, but they don't have training of the how. I have found over years, Brad, is that that's what's missing. That third column of the training of the how is what's truly missing. They can all write out how to do something, but I can listen. I can't get through IKEA. I can't assemble furniture with pictures from IKEA. Okay, like they lose me. All right, so I need a I have a different learning method, right? So it doesn't work, and I don't assemble furniture ever. So, but it's that point of the training of the how that's so critical in your leadership capacity. If you can't teach them how to do it, you can't just tell them. You have to actually train them in it, right?
Yeah, it's so true, and probably one of the highest levels, one of the higher levels of processes and procedures is ISO, and what people that are big fans of ISO will tell you is that generally, if they're not in conformance of ISO, it's not because they're not doing something right or they don't have the right process. It's that they're not following the process that they themselves put in place.
Right.
And so, to your point, the training isn't just training on what the process is, it's a training on the consistent application of the process. Because the process in the military, in manufacturing, in virtually all businesses, is designed to try and drive out aberrations and variations that are undesirable. Right.
Right.
And so, if we don't, to your point, do that training, do that compliance training, then we're not helping people to be their best consistent self.
Right. And I want to elaborate on this too, because I think a lot of people have a misconception, Brad, on people don't want to work. They don't care. They don't do this stuff. I said, no, I'm going to go the other way. People want to do a good job. Okay.
Totally.
They want to win. Okay. They want to be successful at whatever they do, whatever they put their hand to, they want to be successful. So if you're not showing them, and I say this often, how to win on a daily basis, what does winning look like today, on the week, the month, the quarter, the year? What does that look like? If you don't have that clearly set out in this consistency, doing this right every single time is how they win. That can be an element of it, right? So it's really important that people understand you've got to have that consistency, but where is the goalpost? Where's the goalpost at the end of the day, end of the week? Where are we going? And so many companies I see and I work with don't have these metrics. So people are just kind of putting A into B, and that's what they do. But there's always more to that. There isn't a job that's too simple where you don't need to know how to win.
No.
Right? You have to understand. They have to have a goalpost. And when you do that, again, it's another cultural thing. They're much happier to work. There isn't mystery to their job. Right? I'm a big fan of no mystery on the job. Okay, we know what we have to do, when we're going to do it. Yes, some things could arise. We'll solve those problems when they happen. That's okay. But you're not going to get hit with 3 different things from 4 different directions.
Yep.
Okay, every day. You don't have to, no one wants a job like that.
Yeah.
Right? They want to be able to come in and
That reward and recognition piece, Richard, I think is so important. And it's even more important with longer processes because one of the things that knocks people off consistency is that at the end of the day, our brains are trained to see things as new and novel as exciting. Goes back to the Neanderthal days when saber-toothed tigers were out there, and that was something that you needed to react to right away. But something that's kind of repetitive and a regular process can become monotone and therefore boring. So a big challenge for leaders, as you said, is to look for the rewards and recognitions along the way, to incentivize people to want to keep up their interest and attitude towards consistently delivering on a daily basis. And if the leader goes, guys, whatever you delivered last week is not enough. So, whatever you need to do next week, do more of it. That's not helping people to get excited about it. Whereas the cheerleader who says, guys, we just crushed it last week because we had, 0.1 errors, and this was just such a great, experience. They're going to be the ones who keep up the enthusiasm around consistent processes, and they're the ones who are going to be able to deliver that at the end of the day.
Yeah, I love it. I think I always say there's three things primarily. It's purpose, recognition, and quality pay. Those are the three things people want in a job, right? They want purpose. They want to know what they're doing means something. They want to know the why, if you will, right? What's the ultimate vision? What are we really doing this for? Second is the recognition, public and private. You might get the public pat on the back. You might get something private, like a bonus. You might get something like that, right? So they want that. That's really, really important. I was awful at that. I just figured you work hard. I work hard. I think that's the reward.
Right.
There's no, only a laboring man knows true rest, right? I mean, I'm like, so work harder, and then you have to. But that was an idiot. Okay, so it's like, so now it's they need that, yeah.
Right, and you learn that over time and through trial and error, and then from getting exposure to other ideas and thoughts, and this is why leadership coaching is so important. And what, I read an article, it was I think it was this morning, and it was talking about Gen Z, and they don't want leadership roles. Why? Because leadership is messy. It's not systematic. It's not like a game you play on your phone. It's not like coding. It's not simple and straightforward. It's messy because people have personalities, and this is something that you have to deal with. But if we give them the skills and the thoughts and the ideas on how to do this, it'll make it so much easier, and we could get them excited about wanting to manage people. And if we get them excited about not just wanting to manage people, but help people to become more successful versions of themselves, however they define that, that's when I think you'll find people getting excited about leadership.
Yeah, I think you're right, Brad, because there's purpose, right? But the training, like I said, that's what has to go with it. How do you handle difficult conversations? How do you do this? How do you do that, right? We need to walk through this stuff. Like, what does this actually mean? How do you actually do this? And that's role play. That's what I do. I train them in role play.
Yeah.
And I can be interesting as be a little intimidating. Like I'll get them to that spot, right? Where they just melt. Okay, well, no, let's do this again. I'll show you what you got to do, right? So it's a lot of fun, but they get that, and you start to build their confidence, and you say, this is so we can achieve this, right? We need you to guide them and teach them how to do this, and we can achieve our ultimate goal here, which is our purpose, right? And you'll get this recognition when you do this, right? Everybody wins. So it's really creating that kind of cascade of how that works and encouraging these Gen Zs to really like step into this role because there's an actual roadmap. The problem is, like we said multiple times already, no one's training them to do this. They're just assigning them the position. And when has that ever worked in history?
Yeah.
Like never. It's like, what? Now that's being a little ridiculous, and let's try something new. Okay, like I think we already know that fails. So it just doesn't work. So we gotta put something else in place.
Well, I think that one other important thing is that there continues to be a stigma around coaching, and coaching, certainly in leadership, tends to be reflected on as being, it's because you can't, or you're not good at what you're doing, so you need a coach, to train you on these things. Well, if coaching wasn't such a noble cause, there isn't a multi-million-dollar athlete alive that would have a coach, because if they're not getting value out of it for the millions and millions of dollars they're paying and the millions and millions of dollars that they're getting, they wouldn't do it. But they do it because they know that's how they're going to get that extra 1, 3, 5% performance out of what they do. So I'm gratified when I see younger people coming to coaching with a much more open mind and saying, no, I want this because I'm not getting it from my company, or I am the founder of my company and I'm now very isolated at the top and I'm not getting the kind of help and support that I need. And so I want coaching. I want somebody like Richard or Brad to help me in this journey because it's an isolated journey.
Yeah, it's not easy. There's nothing easy about it, but I really think when we take it this kind of a 10,000 foot view and we look at what's going on and who's doing what, where the breakdowns are, like I've begun to really, as of late, focus on the front line. I'm on frontline guys working who are, because they're actually what makes things move, right? But if they don't know how to lead, it's just chaos. Okay, it's breakdowns, slowdowns, it's all these things. I begin there. We correct this problem, then we'll work our way kind of back up the chain, because this is just a little coaching insight. Okay. We all know it's probably the owner who's the biggest problem. Just being honest, because I was a big problem owner, right? But you can't start there. Okay. It doesn't work very well. Don't come and tell the owner he's broken. Okay. This doesn't go over well. So I'm just giving you, all you coaches, a little hint. Okay. But go down and fix a problem. Show them your worth. Show them that you can train other leaders to create other leaders, right? And coach and run the smooth and communicate and everything else. And then you'll just work your way back up there. You'll come around. They'll come around and you'll be able to work on them eventually, right? So there's some job security there. It's not one and done.
A benevolent revolution.
That's it. I love it. That's a good one. Yeah, really awesome. So in the book, anything else like we've left out from your book? I want to just kind of hit some high points on this. Anything else you want to bring up?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more, but I think we did a good job of bringing out all of the various themes, right? So,
excellent.
My book is it's a bit of a memoir, so it traces all of my changes from different industries because that's a big challenge for people. Is you spent a good portion of your career in one industry. You know all of the people in your industry. They know you. Most people know you as a particular kind of person, but when you want to switch industries, it's not quite as simple as doing that. So there's some strategies and thoughts and ideas on how to do it. But one of the pieces that comes out of that is that if you are switching industries and as you move up the chain in any company, you're not going to be the subject matter expert. You're not going to be the person who's the best doer because there's going to be so many different roles. So it's more, therefore, that you need to be the chief questioner and be the person who can get the best out of other people because you're never going to be the subject matter expert on all of the different parts of your company.
Yeah, that's a great point. Really, really good point. There was a study done, I don't call it a study, but they say the average person's in their lifetime is going to have 11 careers, not jobs, like 11 careers. That's a lot of changing. That's a lot of transition, to your point. Pretty amazing. And yeah, I did the same thing in my book. Like when you weave your story, like I love that you put kind of a memoir thing to it because, well, for one thing, it makes it way more readable. Okay, it'll be much more enjoyable to read your book. Okay, it's just not here, do this, and that kind of stuff. Same with mine. And but it's cool to see, And I'm just gonna wrap this up with, I'm so glad you wrote the book and added that wisdom and that journey of yours in there, because this is what people need to see. When you have a book on consistency and you got someone who did this stuff for 45 years and everything else, and you got to see how it applies, right? And then it makes it much more relatable. And people have to understand that consistency does come in many shapes and sizes, but that's where you get success. We all know you don't go to the gym once a week and get fit. Okay. It's your 3 days a week, your 5, whatever you do, it's over and over and over again, right? You have to be consistent on that, and it's a key element. I'm excited you wrote a book on that. I'm sure there's others, but you've got yours now. It's a bestseller, and I love it. So people can get that on Amazon, right?
Absolutely. It's called The Consistency Effect by Brad.
The Consistency Effect. I like it. So I'm going to recommend everyone go there and get that. Let's get that. Now, Brad, they want to talk to you, get in touch with you, maybe get you helping them out with their coaching and things like that, where do they go?
So my company is called Consistency Edge Leadership Coaching. So consistency-edge.com. And that's the best way to get in touch with me, consistency-edge.com.
Awesome. So I recommend people do that. Check out what Brad has. A lot of wisdom here, a lot of experience, a lot of practical application. We've got a lot today on this. Has been a lot of fun just sharing with you. Just a great conversation, Brad. I really, really appreciate your time today. And for everyone else, we'll see you on the next STS podcast. Thanks for tuning in to Sharpen the Spear podcast. If today's episode helped you think sharper, act smarter, or see new profit potential, do me a favor. Share it with a fellow home service owner and leave a quick review. Ready to find the profit hiding in your business? Head to sharpenthespearcoaching.com and book your free profit discovery call today. And until next time, keep sharpening.